Okay, so what I wanted to do at this session is talk about the make pipeline permissions more controllable and flexible issue. There is a part of the issue description that talks about, is under the proposal of what the design should be, basically what the user's experience should be, and specifically the workflow. And Dimitri and I were talking about this last week during our Thursday sync. And I was telling him that I needed designer help on what he thought that should be. And so I scheduled this for us to get together. There's some of it that Jason suggested that we might have an engineer involved in case there's some feasibility issues we can talk about related to the workflow. I'm not that familiar with how the dynamics of writing to the write and the read and the write access is given. So I figured I'd leave it to the expert like Zhigorsh to fill us in if we have questions about that. So Dimitri, did you get a chance to take a stab at what we might have the workflow be for this issue?
Yes. By the way, I created an agenda because we didn't have one. It's in the chat here.
Okay.
So I'll be posting a link towards the comment that I've created inside that. Let me see.
I'll help taking notes as well.
So
So what was your question again? Sorry, I will just document that.
Oh, here, I'll document it. I basically was asking Dimitri if he had a proposal on what the user workflow would be for this.
Yeah, so looking into that, the issue has an insane amount of customer requests. So I don't find it strange that we finally planned this and go ahead as to moving it forwards. I've been reading through it and trying to grasp as much as I can from it. And though, regardless of that, I need to validate some of my assumptions here with you, Tao, and the rest. I think specifically Zhigorsh can help steer my assumptions into the right directions here. Because I was just wondering sometimes, like, what is the exact problem here? And what is the right way to solve it? So I'll talk a little bit through the comment I've created. The problem, as far as I can see, is that currently, in order to give pipelines enough permissions to write back to, for example, the repository or the registry, personal access tokens are being used in order to do so. However, this opens up a security problem because those pipelines will then be run as if being that user of who is the author of the personal access token. Those tokens are then used inside of a job as a secret variable. And so the author of the original pipeline will not be the author of the changes that will happen because of that personal access token. Additionally, the personal access token might be able to be revealed, and then any malicious user can use that personal access token to create havoc and act as the original author of that personal access token, basically having identity theft there. So the idea here now is that additionally to that, currently there are some restrictions in place for pipelines, and that even though they have those access tokens, they are not able to write back to the repository as far as I can see, or that is only if you used a deploy token. Am I correct there, Zhigorsh?
So that's a very good question, and I'm actually reading the proposal right now, and I still can't answer that question. I thought it should behave a little differently. So that's, I was kind of surprised by what you were saying. So I feel like I'm not on the same page of what the proposal is. So although I've read it already, I'm doing this again. So please give me a few minutes.
Yeah, it's mostly about understanding us first what the problem is before we jump to any solution
Yeah,
or
exactly.
proposal.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Tao, maybe you can help clarifying here, like what's the problem from your perspective? What are we trying to solve?
Yeah. Uh, and so maybe I should also go edit this after this session, the description. When I, from what I learned, because I talked to Jason about this this issue as well, and especially specifically the problem to solve. And the problem, as I understand it, is when okay, so a user's personal access token will work if they are running a script, but that there is something hard coded where it removes that access if if the user is triggering the same whatever action they were doing in a job in a pipeline. And so the part that in the first sentence of problem to solve, where it says with an additional set of limitations apply in order to reduce risk, that's referring to whatever is hard coded that strips out that permission so that you can't perform the same activity in a pipeline as that same user could with their token when running it manually in a script. So that's what I understand. So what we're trying to solve in this issue is removing that hard-coded restriction and instead allowing for, if you look down to under further details, allowing for a way to assign these different scopes to a user's token. And in order to do that in the proposal, you'll see in the implementation plan, we have to change. Camille had suggested all the steps that would have to happen. We'd have to change from using personal access token to JWT and then the rest of the steps 1 through 5 for implementation.
Okay, so I managed to read through the problem to solve, and that's probably the most important section of the issue for the time being. And I think I understand what we want to accomplish. However, it's not necessarily clear for me if the proposal that we have described in the issue is actually something that is technically feasible to do. But I think that for the time being, we can focus on the problem to solve. And how I understand this problem is that we have two ways of performing actions from within a CI build, right? The first way is using personal access token that someone can inject into secret variables. And of course, they first need to add this personal access token and they can define the scope of access for that token. So this is something that works already, and this is not something that we want to change in the scope of this issue. Then another way to communicate with GitLab from within a CI build is using a CI job token, right? And this is something that is another way.
It's the same as deploy token, right? Or not?
No, deploy token is yet another token. So it is kind of different. However, actually, in some cases it is the same as CI job token, but not in every case. So let's focus on the CI job token right now. And indeed, we do not have a way to limit the scope of access for CI job token. And that's probably what we want to do. We want, because CI job token is associated with a CI build, and whenever GitLab a build communicates with GitLab using that token, we use it to find a build, and then every build is also associated with a user, and that's how we build this relationship between CI job token and the user. And you can do some things using CI job token. You can access GitLab's API using CI job token. Not every endpoint in the API, but a few. and there's no way to actually reduce the access right associated with SCI job token. So perhaps that's what we want to do here, or perhaps I'm misunderstanding some.
Sorry, can you, so we're now on the topic of CI job token. There were 3 ways. Let's quickly name the third and then jump back into CI token so we're on the same page.
So do you mean the deploy token as a third?
Grzegorz deploy token.
If that is that you were like, when you were originally starting, were the 3 ways of tackling this problem currently, was that personal access token, CI job token, and deploy token, or not? Like, what was the third way of tackling this problem? That's basically the thing I'm asking.
I think it's deploy token, yes.
And a quick question, because you said, hey, it is not the same as deploy token, but in some cases it is. Like, it is, but it isn't. So what is it?
So deploy token might be different for registry, because this time we are using the CI job token, as far as I remember, but I would need to check it. Like it's been a while since I actually had opportunity to look at this part of the code base. And then you can define a deploy token in the settings as well.
Yeah, deploy tokens are visible in settings, but the thing I'm finding hard to, so I know personal access tokens, I know deploy tokens, but I have no way, I have no concept of a CI token. Where can I find it? Where can I configure it? In what way can users use it to resolve the current, like how they can provision a workaround currently?
So it's documented somewhere, I think. And so there are many different ways of which GitLab runner actually communicates with GitLab, because we are downloading code from GitLab using CI job token, right? Then this is how GitLab runner communicates with GitLab. GitLab runner is using CI job token to communicate with GitLab. And GitLab runner in most cases usually uses the CI job token to access the repository. Then we have many different ways of how a script written by a user can communicate with GitLab. Right? That's again something interesting. And then we have another couple of ways of how a pipeline communicates with GitLab when it's creating a child pipeline or cross-project pipeline. And this is yet another edge case, because pipeline from one project is going to create pipeline in another project. And we are checking the access rights of a user that created that pipeline, whether this person can create pipeline in the downstream project. So I wonder if we should actually start from documenting what kinds of communications we have between a pipeline and GitLab, or a build and GitLab, right? And then decide what is in the scope of the issue and what is not. Because you can probably push code from a CI build runner to GitLab in a few different ways. You can use access token to push code. I'm not sure if you can use CI job token. And definitely you can't use deploy token, or I can't really remember if deploy tokens can be used to push code. I can't remember, I would need to check that. So again, you know, there are many different ways in which a context of a build can communicate with GitLab. And it's not entirely clear for me which of these we want to augment, alter, or change.
All right. So a last question towards that is, in the original proposal, or in the original discussion description, thank you so much. It is set. Let me see if I can find it here.
Hey, one thing that I noticed, and I'm sorry, I'm just picking up on this since I wasn't the original author on the issue, but under further details, it does reference a thread to an issue that was marked as a duplicate of this issue, where the first sentence under further details where this issue originates out of the comment thread. And if you go to that issue itself, that issue is about extending, the title of that one is create a CI extended job token. So it's almost introducing an additional job token to what exists now for CI job token, so CI extended. And then the link to that comment is from Camille, and of course all of his comment was pasted into the issue we're talking about under implementation plan. So, but what I'm getting at is, rather than create this new thing called CI extended job token, I think we're talking about just changing the existing CI build token.
So I think we're converging towards the same question, Tao. My question was related towards what is being currently hard-coded, like the limitation, in order to reduce the risk of security problems, preventing a pipeline by default to write back to the repository. Like, where is that hard code being done? Is that currently being done? I think it's not part of personal access token. I think it's not part of deploy token, though deploy token doesn't have the scope in order to be able to do that at all. So it's not a possibility with that, while it is with personal access token. And then we have the last one, which is the CI job token. I think that is where it is being hard-coded. Is that correct, Grzegorz?
So I indeed see the point number 1 in the implementation plan, which says that we want to change CI build token, and the token described here is indeed the CI job token, right? So it appears that this is what we want to change in the scope of this merge request, and it does not really touch anything that's related to access tokens, deploy tokens, or anything else. And
Wait,
so
Grzegorz, did you just say that point number 1, when it says CI build token, it's really the CI job token?
Yes, that's
okay.
That's exactly the same. We use CI build token and inject it into the build context as a CI job token environment variable that we then use, that is then used by a runner to retrieve Git repository from GitLab.
Yeah, I'm gonna go change, because I'm gonna go change that word build to job so we don't have a confusion that it's a different one. Okay.
We can add it in the extend the description of this point. And something that I would need to check, the answer that I'm missing right now is whether it is actually possible to push code to GitLab using CI job token, because I'm not sure. It might not be possible. So if it's not possible, then what we are trying to solve here in this merge request, in this issue.
Yeah, because I mean, that is like, if it is true that the CI job token is limited and hard-coded to prevent writing back to the repository, that is kind of then the problem we're trying to fix, right?
Yeah, that is the problem. We're wanting to remove the hard-coded limitations and have a way to configure it, the example of the scopes.
Yeah, because as I see it, it is the only way, like at some point in the original description, it states a user will never be able to get more permissions. This is part of the proposal, so take that with a grain of salt. The user will never be able to get more permissions than the user has through this mechanism. So even if read API is turned on in the scope, if the user does not have that ability, they don't get it for free. This could potentially be improved on afterwards. But the thing that I get from this is, with a personal access token that is configured within the scope of the personal access token, and if you trigger something through that personal access token, you're automatically acting as that user. It is the same with a deploy token. You're acting as the deploy token in that sense and not a direct user, if I'm correct. And then the CI token always acts as an extension of the original author that does the pipeline trigger, like it triggers the pipeline, right? So
a build, right? Because someone else can
yes,
trigger a pipeline, but when you retry a build, you are the
yes.
creator of this build, and CI job token is associated with you.
PS builder's job in this context.
Yes, of course. I'm usually using build name instead of job because it's how it's written in code. So in the code, we refer to jobs as builds because we have never changed that.
Back in the day when we changed build to jobs, I still know the issue. Anyway, the thing what I think we're getting at is currently the permission scope of a CI job token is hard coded. Let's make that accessible through the user interface and add additional scopes.
Yeah, that's what I understand here as well. However, I think I will add a to-do for myself to check whether it is possible to push code to GitLab or what is actually possible with CI job token, because I know that we use it to retrieve code from GitLab. GitLab Runner does it, but what can be done in the context of a build script with a CI job token to access GitLab? So I know that we can access some parts of the API, but not too many. And yeah, and that's it. I'm not sure whether it's possible to use it to push code, but I will check that, and hopefully this will give us more context what is actually the impact of it, building this feature, right?
So my last question towards the original description as towards the proposal, it mentions OAuth, that we want to take advantage of that. How can we see this, or is this only mentioned in the future improvements?
So I think this is, if it is important, it's only important as an implementation detail, not necessarily something that a user needs to see or understand.
Okay, gotcha. So it's merely the way that the CI job token is communicating that goes through OAuth instead of something else.
So that's probably true. However, if we choose to use OAuth, I will need to understand if OAuth can be used by a user to grant some permissions, right? Because this is what we use OAuth for whenever someone has an application that needs to be authorized, and there is this OAuth page where a user can actually allow this application to communicate with whatever the OAuth is being used for. So yeah, I feel like I'm missing some amount of research on this issue. So yeah, sorry for not doing that prior to the meeting.
No worries.
I think it's good for this meeting just to make sure we're all on the same page of what the problem to solve is.
Yeah. I also have a question that will touch the visual part, the visible parts, the user experience for this. So like the backend part, we can, it seems like we need some research to be done to see how exactly we can access that and change. But also curious, is there anything right now that we could plan for around how do we want to display those additional permissions to the users, or we prefer to first do the technical research and then go to this part?
So I think we need technical research first, because we don't even know if we are going to reuse the views or forms that we use for OAuth, or whether we want to build something new. So that's the thing we need to understand first before we can consider designing something.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I want to clear a thing up, because I saw your question somewhere in the threads reacting to Trizzy as to like, hey, can we reuse, or are we just adding some additional permissions to an existing UI? So that is a little bit where we went into when we discussed the 3 different ways. So personal access tokens, CI job tokens, and deploy tokens. And the UI that is being mentioned is either part of the deploy token or the personal access token, and does not touch in any way CI job token, which is the most potentially the core of the problem we're trying to tackle here, which is hard-coded and not touched by any UI currently. So even though we can potentially reuse some UI, we cannot add to any existing UI because it's not there. It's not yet been created at all.
Yeah, I think we do have settings for pipeline permissions somewhere, or general pipeline settings. So we do have a bunch of places where we can configure CI, right? In general, on a project level, but I can't remember if we have any place where we can actually configure CI on the user level, and this is essentially what we would need in this case, right?
So that is, I'm a little bit unsure about that, because how I see it is that the idea here is to extend upon the user's permission. So the permissions we give the pipeline will never exceed the permissions of the user. So if we can, for example, imagine this, say we can scope the permissions of the pipeline in, for example, either a project or a group, then the original author, say for example you, Grzegorz, will trigger the pipeline, and then the pipeline will look first at your permissions, see, hey, does this user have permission to write back to repository? If so, move on to the next part, see at CI job token, see, hey, can I actually use this mechanism to write back to the repository token? Yes, if so, then I'll do that. But if one of those two is no, with you being the first one, even though, for example, the CI job token has permission to do it, you as a user does not, then it will not be able to do so. So yeah, it is more of an extension upon that.
Yeah, I understand that, but the question is, who is responsible for configuring this behaviors? For example, I'm a user who can push code to some project, but I don't want my CI job token to be able to do that. So am I responsible for doing that, or perhaps that's going to be enforced either on project, group, or at instance level by a maintainer or instance administrator? Who is responsible for configuring that stuff?
Yeah, so as I thought initially of it, but it is good to look into that, is this will become part of either the project or the group settings view. So it is manageable as a maintainer of either of those scopes. And then it will react automatically based on like those, like I see there's two gates, like you have the user permissions and then you have the configured pipeline permissions basically that the process needs to roll through. So in that case, I would see it will fit in either the project or group settings. But you know, I'm wondering in that sense, you said, hey, we have some existing UI to manage pipeline permissions. I do not know about them. I would love for you to report back after you've done some technical research here and see where that actually is, because I have no idea.
So I'm not sure if these are pipeline permissions, but we do have a bunch of places where we can configure pipeline settings for a project and for a group and for an instance as well. Yeah.
On the question of who would be applying, who would be the actor that would be applying these permissions, it is called out in the proposal that it would be defined at a project or maybe group level. And so it would be the project owner, I guess, or maintainer that would be assigning these permissions that at the pipeline level, but never to exceed the access of the user triggering the pipeline.
Okay, so it is possible that we need to design something instead of being able to reuse OAuth page, for example, because it's a different scope and a different actor who is responsible for applying the settings. So yeah.
So earlier you were saying, Grzegorz, that probably the technical part needs to be figured out before we start designing it. But I think that the designing of the maybe workflow is dependent on that, but not really what the, I mean, we may not know what scopes can be included, but I think we could still map out what the UX, what the user experience, the workflow would be, like where they would go. Let's say I'm a maintainer or I'm an owner,
Yes,
where I would go to set those.
Yeah, if we are not using OAuth to configure permissions, then it feels like this needs to go to project or group settings, and it is indeed something that we can design in parallel to technical research.
Oh, but that's only if we're not using OAuth 2.
I mean OAuth because we might be using OAuth under the hood, but we might not be using the front end part of the OAuth workflow,
Right.
where there is an OAuth page when you actually authorize some application to do something on your behalf in GitLab, right? We might not be using that because it's a user who is going through the OAuth workflow to authorize some application, right? And in that particular case, it feels like it's not user's responsibility, so we are not going to build this that way. Instead, we are going to have some settings configurable on a project or group level.
Yeah.
Right, so it means that we might be using OAuth under the hood, but not the part that is visible to a user.
Gotcha. Hey, Dimitri, under, okay, so that makes sense, Igor. So Dimitri, under implementation plan, the last item, number 5, a UI for choosing the scope, probably at the project level. He says adding a project, choosing the scope.
Sorry, are you saying like you want us to focus on a project, like to have this available for a project first, and then potentially improve upon that with a group, with a way of like managing that per group?
Well, it has it there as the suggestion, but what do you think from a UX perspective? Is it better to start from the project level or from the group for defining the permission, the scope?
Yeah, so in the summary which I made, I have 2 proposals, and I say, hey, extend upon this both on the group and the project.
Mm-hmm.
That is either for, like I have 2 proposals, but the idea is that if you're gonna apply it per group, then you also need a way to add some granularity, so that, for example, this newly configured permission only works for a subset of its projects. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise we're gonna have a little bit of the same problem. But this is an assumption. I'd say like, hey, like I'm a little unsure if we want to support cross-project pipelines. I think it makes the most sense to have this as a group. However, I think technically it might make more sense to start from the project level. What do you think, Grzegorz?
By the way,
So I'm thinking about that.
By the way, sorry. If we only do it at the project level and there are cross-project dependencies, then those cross-project dependencies would not work, right? Assuming the other projects, both the projects that are involved don't have the same settings.
In a way, yes, they will be halted if they make use of those permissions, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Dimitri, to your point about the cross projects usage, but there will be also other settings that are on the project that has to be kind of like that could go under the same bucket, right? So like basically what I'm trying to say that if we are looking into like using cross projects pipeline, there will be other settings that we will need to figure out the way how to allow users to fix those or configure those as well, similar to this setting. So yeah, just trying, hopefully it's clear what I'm trying to say.
So
does it make sense?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, so you mean like, hey, if you want to control this from a project setting, then are gonna create a group setting that manages the same thing, then we should make sure that if a setting in the group is changed, it has an effect in the project setting, and vice versa.
It's more like, you have a concern that you said that if we want to support the cross-project pipelines, it would make more sense to put the setting on the group level. Otherwise, the project level is the best. It sounds that you are more like leaning towards putting this on the project level, but I'm saying probably there are other settings on the project that would that would need to be supported for the cross-project pipeline in the future as well. So like this can fall into the same bucket in the future. Maybe I'm totally mistaken, but
so this is interesting because it's possible to create a cross-project pipeline that triggers pipeline in a completely different group. So this is then cross-instance pipeline, like across groups pipeline. So this is one problem. And then we can use CI job token to get user permissions to perform actions on every resource in that given instance. So because user concept is scoped to entire pipeline, to entire instance, right? And I can actually build a pipeline that is going to push code to some project outside of my groups, to completely different resource, different project, and how then I evaluate the permissions if I have or per group or per project, scoped tokens. Then how
I
can
see
use
what you
that
mean.
token to do something in a completely different part of GitLab that is outside of the project, outside the group?
So in that case, it should also always refer back towards the user as the first point of contact in terms to see of permissions, right? So it should work in tandem with that. If I have permission in group A and also in group B, and the pipeline I'm starting, which intends to post something back to group A, but resides in group B, then the permissions, it's so hard. The permissions in group A should allow for that, and my permission as a user accessible that have access in both groups should allow us to like break that link, right?
Or perhaps this should be configurable on user level and then project, group, or instance, right? Because then what's configured on the user level, I would like to say, tell GitLab that, look, this is my token, and I don't want to use this token to push code to any resource, any project in that GitLab instance. And then this could be configured on a project level, on a group level, and we would build, the combined scopes. So if I'm contributing to a project, I'm taking the configuration in that project and the user configuration, and taking the minimal access that stems from combining those two and using that.
So I think, like, I see what you mean, but I think this severely limits the power of what we're trying to, like the use cases we've heard that are written down is that, hey, they want to do something and write back to the repository. The question then becomes, is it only one user that is ever doing that? Or are a lot of users doing that? And then if that is the case, they will all have to act like enable that within their own user permissions explicitly before they will be able to do that. Well, if we make it like some kind of session, like detached from the user's permissions, then you have the default user permissions. They have access to the project or not. They have access to the group or not. And then you have the separate pipeline permissions that say, hey, if a user that has enough permissions, do we also allow this user to write back to this repository, yes or no? So then it becomes like accessible to all users immediately without them each individually have to configure something.
Yeah, so I think it's quite difficult to reason about that, and my proposal is to document, to collect this information. What can be done with the CI job token right now? Because what can be done right now, it kind of affects the design and the implementation. Because then knowing what can be done with CI job token, we can reason about how to reasonably limit what can be done with the CI job token. And for example, the cross-project pipelines and pipeline triggers, that's a very interesting problem because it's instance-wide and not necessarily project or group level. And I can try to collect that information and pose that to the issue, and perhaps this way we could have another meeting that in which we would have more context to make some decisions.
I think this makes sense.
Yeah.
A question on the side. Maybe there is already a case with a similar, permission setting problem. Because oh my God, these permissions is always like it's a wood forest, such a deep one that nobody wants to go in. Maybe we already like have a similar example somewhere. I don't know, in package. Because Tim Breezy was pretty active in the discussion. Maybe we can also reach out to some other people to say, hey. Is there any similar issue that we have solved in the past? It's going to be A, consistent, and B, we're going to maybe have some more ideas for this. I don't know, just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, I have posted a question in Slack in the development channel to ask for, hey, how do competitors solve this problem? And see if any people have some answers on that. I do wonder a little bit if we're going to get some response towards that.
I'm talking also more internally, like, yeah, it sounds like GitLab's permission are pretty deep for us already. So maybe there was some other similar case. I do not know, just thinking out loud.
So we're coming up on time. I think what we said that we're going to try do next is it gives Zhigor a chance to dig into the code and confirm what the current what's currently supported, and then he'll just give us his findings in the issue. Do we want to? So after that, hopefully, maybe Dimitri, you'll have enough for what you might be designing for what the experience would be for a user who's trying to configure this scope. But I'm trying to figure out if we need another sync and actual synchronous.
So before this research is done, I would like to refrain from us jumping to any solutions that will not be productive. I need the information Zhigor is going to go after as well in order to arrive at any solution that is going to create some user experience.
Okay, that sounds good.
Last question towards Zhigor, just to reaffirm, if you see any UI or get to know about any UI through your research that affect this CI job token, please include it in your research so we can discuss this next time.
Okay, I will do that, no problem.
Awesome. How will you schedule the next one? And when will we do that?
I want to allow time for, what do you think, Zhigor, a week from now or further?
Yeah, I think a week is okay.
Okay, a week from now. And Zhigor, let me also, since you're going to do some research on this, let me also add this to the research, the needs weight research. Oh, it's already assigned to you, isn't it?
I assigned the issue to myself right now, and
okay.
in the planning issue, this is also assigned to myself.
Okay,
so
okay.
It's okay.
All right. Okay, I'll schedule it for a week from now. And I'll just find whatever is open on all our calendars. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I feel like I learned a ton already with this meeting. Thanks a lot.
This is really complicated stuff, so I'm really glad.
my
We're
brain
like
goes.
figuring this out. Okay.
Thanks all.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.